morning, my name is Josh from Cyclones Oz, and here's your detailed weather forecast update for Saturday, the 29th of November 2025. It's another severe thunderstorm day through southeast Queensland with the potential for some gnarly stuff later this afternoon. I've got all the details coming up on what we're expecting, but first, a severe thunderstorm line is now beginning to develop through parts of central Queensland that will eventually push in towards the Toowoomba area in the next couple of hours, and then eventually Brisbane, Ipswich, and the Gold Coast in about 3 or 4 hours' time. We're currently tracking this blob of thunderstorms here that's moving through Roma and out towards Chinchilla, Dalby, Miles, and that sort of location. Towards the west of Toowoomba, but that's also beginning to join up with a solid line of thunderstorms that's also crossing into the northern parts of New South Wales. And as these storms track out of the west and into the east, they're continuing to pick up more moisture, more shower activity, more thunderstorm activity, and we may be seeing some scattered severe thunderstorms in the next 4 hours through southeastern Queensland. The chances of this severe thunderstorm being a wild outbreak, though, at least initially right now, is not expected to be very high. We're not looking at a high-end severe thunderstorm day through southeast Queensland, but there's an interesting wildcard factor at the end of today, out towards this afternoon and into this evening, and some long-track supercell thunderstorms are now once again possible, particularly in the South Burnett forecast district and towards the west and north of Brisbane. Now, if you are brand new to my channel, please do consider subscribing, but let's get stuck straight into the forecast aspect of this video update and talk about what we're looking at right now. So just starting things off on the latest radar imagery, you can see that these storms are now beginning to pick up a little bit more rainfall right over the Chinchilla area, blown through Roma already with 25 millimeters in the gauge, and also a bit of power loss in the Roma area as well, apparently this morning. Now, these thunderstorms are also beginning to develop north and south of this area here. We're seeing one developing right over the top of Dalby right now with some heavy rainfall, another one just outside of Clifton here towards the west of Warwick, and then some down here on the Queensland-New South Wales border outside of Stanthorpe. And all of these thunderstorms heading towards the east. In fact, some of them tracking off towards the southeast, just considering the direction of the lower level jet stream in the atmosphere. Now, this means that they're about 3 or 4 hours away from the Brisbane metro area, and convective forecast modelling is calling for this line to continue developing over the next couple of hours. I mean, if we have a look at this here, we're expecting an enhancement in the thunderstorm activity, and some thunderstorms are also forecast to develop through locations a little bit further north, which will include the Burnett forecast district, and then into parts of the Sunshine Coast, the Fraser Coast, and even the Capricornia coastline. Now, thunderstorms, as mentioned, forecast to push into the next couple of hours through Brisbane and the Gold Coast. That will mean that thunderstorms should arrive through the northern suburbs of Brisbane at around 11 o'clock local time, pushing into the metro and the southern suburbs by about 11:30 or 12 o'clock, give or take an hour or so. Now, the Gold Coast isn't expecting anything too crazy throughout the course of the early this afternoon. In fact, we might not even see a thunderstorm down on the Gold Coast. In fact, the bulk of the thunderstorm activity should be through the scenic rim and then into parts of the northern suburbs of Brisbane, so think Caboolture, Deception Bay, and Redcliffe. The Gold Coast is just a little bit more protected. Even Logan City is a little bit of a lower chance for thunderstorm activity, and convective forecast modelling here from the Access C is suggesting that. But also take it from this here that the Access convective forecast model is not one that is going to be a reliable one today, considering it has initialized these thunderstorms off terribly. Now, what I mean by that is if we compare the current forecast picture from the Access convective, which has a couple of light showers developing here south of Chinchilla, that's the current estimated picture from this Access convective model, to the satellite imagery and the radar imagery, you can see it is just vastly different. There is a lot more thunderstorm and rainfall activity compared to what that forecast is initializing with right now. And what that means is that this forecast model here, the Access convective, is normally a very reliable one, but today it is not going to be a reliable one at all. So we can discount what we're seeing here on the Access convective side of things. We need to be using our more standard forecast modelling here. So in terms of what that means to the Sunshine Coast and southeast Queensland, the Sunshine Coast can expect a good storm or two between 10 o'clock and about midday. In fact, it could be a little bit later for some locations, particularly closer to the coastline and further down in towards the Maroochydore and the Coolum area. Now, for Brisbane, we're expecting these thunderstorms to begin developing from about 11 o'clock, and the first risk of thunderstorms will then begin to ease off after about 12:30 or 1 o'clock. Now, for the Gold Coast, as mentioned, the chance of thunderstorms is not overly elevated there. The majority of the thunderstorms should track over the Gold Coast without really dropping much in the way of rainfall or lightning. We'll also see a couple of good thunderstorms here and there through parts of northeastern New South Wales, particularly south of Urbanville, pushing in towards the Lismore area, and then south towards Yamba and Grafton, and a couple of good thunderstorms as well, as already mentioned, around the Toowoomba and the Warwick area that we're beginning to see develop right now. In fact, a few of those could be severe with damaging winds and heavy rainfall. And the memo this morning and into early this afternoon is we're not expecting wildly severe thunderstorms. Again, if we cross-reference back with the radar imagery right now, it's not really anything crazy that's developing around the Chinchilla or the Miles area at this point in time. And if we have a look at some of our rainfall rates in here, it's nothing southeast Queensland hasn't seen before, 40, 50, 60 millimeters an hour. And again, not sustained for an hour. We're not talking about hailstones in these thunderstorms either. And if there is going to be hailstones developing, which is going to be a possibility around the Clifton, Warwick, and the Toowoomba area in the next few hours or so, we're talking about small hailstones no bigger than 2 or or 3 centimeters in diameter. So again, really not much of a concern at this point in time. These thunderstorms are not ones that are worth worrying about or worth panicking about at this point in time. A pretty stock standard thunderstorm outbreak through Southeast Queensland that we would see typically in January or February, or in a late night thunderstorm setup, not so much in an early morning severe thunderstorm setup, but they do happen every now and then. It's still pretty stock standard stuff for Southeast Queensland. So business as usual, but plan around some rainfall that's going to be coming through around midday through Brisbane and the Gold Coast. Now behind this thunderstorm outbreak, or behind this line of thunderstorms, we do have a little bit of drier, clearer air as well. And this is important. This is an important factor to understand in the forecast here, because as this line moves out towards the east, this drier air, this clearer air is also going to move out towards the east. But this air is still very, very conducive for thunderstorm activity. And you can see there is still a little bit of cloud activity developing here and there, particularly around the Wyandra and Charleville area, and also around the St. George area. And this becomes important for this afternoon and this evening's forecast. If we have a look at our forecast modelling right now, we are expecting a line of thunderstorms to develop, but extending between Chinchilla down to about Warwick or Stanthorpe or Wallingarra on the New South Wales-Queensland border, and that could produce later tonight after about 4 or 5 o'clock some powerful severe thunderstorms. Now forecast modelling has been pretty hit or miss on this over the last couple of days, but we're definitely expecting some strong thunderstorm activity at this point in time to develop through parts of the Burnett forecast district here into the Wivenhoe outlook, and recent forecast modelling from the convective models has also been suggesting some long-tracked supercell thunderstorms towards the north of Toowoomba and Brisbane. We've also had a couple of good thunderstorms on the forecast modelling into the scenic rim. I would take that with a pinch of salt, just considering the current setup that we've got today and the fact that this cloud cover is probably going to linger through Southeast Queensland until about 2 o'clock, which is going to thwart off thunderstorm chances in the southeast itself. But the sooner this cloud coverage can clear, which by the looks of things is going to be around midday or just after through parts of the Burnett forecast district, you can see it here, this high cloud coverage really doesn't hang along for too much longer, or hang around for too much longer. In fact, it does really properly begin to clear up after about midday or 1 o'clolock. This is going to then present the chance of some serious warming to happen once that sun begins to bear down on Southeast Queensland and the air gets a lot more warmer and unstable. After about 1 o'clock, we're going to see thunderstorm chances begin to build. Now, we're of course talking about an early severe thunderstorm outbreak, so chances of wild severe thunderstorm activity is still not generally expected to be widespread, but considering the fact that it is properly going to begin to warm up and we're going to see temperatures climb into the 30s after lunchtime and out to about the early evening hours. In fact, we could be seeing temperatures approaching the mid-30s by around 4 or 5 o'clock. This can be very favourable for a couple of stronger thunderstorms to develop, particularly towards the north of Toowoomba. Now, the areas that I'm most concerned about right now at this point in time is this pocket here. So this includes Gympie, Kingaroy, Yarraman, Goomeri, and then up towards Gayndah. This is where the strongest thunderstorm activity that I'm personally expecting is going to occur. And this is north of a line between Toowoomba and Brisbane, including Ipswich, and over the Wivenhoe Dam area, and then up towards the Brisbane River catchment and the Wivenhoe outlook, and extending north up to about Gayndah and Tyro. This does throw Hervey Bay and Bundaberg into the mix of potentially some thunderstorms later tonight, but for the most part, the Capricornia coastline and parts of the Fraser coastline should be seeing upscaled versions of these thunderstorms, which means for the most part non-severe, and if they are severe, just damaging winds. Supercell thunderstorms are going to be a possibility. There's lots of wind shear in the environment, and if we get an idea of the convective sounding as well as we get out towards later this afternoon and this evening, this is one to be taken outside of Yarraman. If I can figure out how to load it up. You can see here great levels of bulk wind shear, very, very favourable for severe thunderstorm activity. We also have a little bit of a dry slot in the atmosphere as well, and whilst the atmosphere is generally speaking quite dry, it is still conducive for some severe thunderstorm development. And we could be talking about some long-ish tracked supercell thunderstorms, only 1 or 2 of them, considering the amount of convective available potential energy in the environment. It's not overly flash for these severe thunderstorms, but we're definitely going to be talking about some long-tracked thunderstorm activity later this afternoon and this evening. Now, I'll have another update on this later in the afternoon, probably about 2 or 3 o'clock Southeast Queensland time, just talking about the chances of this severe thunderstorm activity and how likely it is to properly pull through. But at this point in time, I would definitely be banking on some strong thunderstorm activity towards the north of Brisbane and Toowoomba. Is Ipswich going to be in the firing line? They normally are on severe thunderstorm forecasts like this. At this point in time, still a little bit too early to say for sure. And in terms of the risk for the scenic rim as well, with that high cloud coverage expected to pull south of the scenic rim at about 1 o'clock, I just think that it's going to be too little too late. We're not going to have enough time for the air to really warm up through the scenic rim, and that thwarts off the thunderstorm chances for the Logan City area, the Gold Coast area, and also for Boonah, Bow Desert, and even by extension Brisbane as well, because we'd need thunderstorms to be developing around the Warwick or the Clifton area to become Brisbane problems problems, and that's just not going to happen at this point in time. The thunderstorm development zone is going to be out here towards the north of Toowoomba, which then throws parts of the Sunshine Coast into the mix. But then again, by the time they get up towards the Sunshine Coast, they're going to be shells of their former selves, and we're likely going to be talking about much weaker thunderstorms up there. Now, I don't know if you've been able to tell by the kind of flip-floppy nature of this video update so far, there's still a lot of uncertainties. Things can happen, things will happen, but we're not 100% sure where and when they're going to be for certain locations. So take this forecast with a pinch of salt. In terms of the risk later tonight, I'll have a detailed update on that later today, so make sure you are subscribed for that. We just don't know until we see when this cloud coverage is going to clear off, and if it does clear off earlier, the better the chances of severe thunderstorm activity there's going to be through southeast Queensland. If it clears off later, then we're going to be talking about a much lower chance of severe thunderstorm activity, and it really is dependent on when this cloud coverage, which is currently clearing off around the Roma and the Injune area, begins to clear out through this part of Queensland here. We're probably looking at about 3 or 4 hours away, but if it's anything like 6 hours away, then you can completely forget about severe thunderstorm chances through this part of Queensland. So we will keep an eye on the situation. I'll keep monitoring this, and of course, if very dangerous severe thunderstorms develop, I will be bringing you the latest and greatest in live coverage. Now, in terms of other impacts across Australia right now, we do have a bit of a cold front and a low pressure system pushing through the southeast, and that's bringing some rainfall and shower activity into the Capital Territory and through the southeast of New South Wales and through eastern and the eastern edges of Victoria, including through the Gippsland region. If we have a look at rainfall accumulations, we are going to be talking about some serious rainfall, somewhat serious rainfall throughout the remainder of today. In fact, 1 or 2 locations may be picking up falls between 20 to 30 millimetres into the Gippsland. Good rainfall accumulations for this time of the year. Now, low pressure system activity is expected to continue, and in fact for Melbourne, we could be talking about one of the coldest starts to December on record, with Monday only expecting a top of about 13 or 14 degrees into the Melbourne city area. I believe the all-time record for a December maximum is 13.8 or something like that. So very, very cold indeed. On Monday, the 1st of December, we must be talking about snowfall occurring as far down as 1,200 metres through parts of the ranges of New South Wales and Victoria as well. And then after that, it looks like it is going to be a little bit dry, and as we push things out towards next weekend, we're going to be talking about another severe thunderstorm chance through parts of southeast Queensland. Saturday is presenting the chance of a few severe thunderstorms here and there through parts of central and southeastern Queensland, but I'm not overly excited for that outbreak. And then Sunday, things begin to get a little bit realer, and you can see there is a greater chance of severe thunderstorm activity, and Sunday really could be a cracker outbreak. I mean, we've got that massive dry slot into the mid-levels, and at this point in time, if we do see thunderstorms developing on Sunday or next Sunday, they really could be, with this kind of setup here, they really could be something special. So we're going to be watching the 7th of December quite closely. Areas into the scenic rim and through southeast Queensland, including Brisbane and the Gold Coast, we may be talking about a potentially very serious or even dangerous severe thunderstorm outbreak once again. Anything is possible this year, and again, having a look at the conditions that we've got set up for next Sunday, it could be very, very special indeed through parts of southeast Queensland if this stuff keeps itself going. And just in towards northern Queensland, a little bit of rainfall on the cards as we get out towards the first couple of days of December. We may see a bit of a low pressure system set itself up somewhere around here into the Coral Sea, which will shuttle rainfall in on the southern side, and that could present the Cassowary Coast and even Cairns and Townsville with a couple of good drops as we get out towards next week. Now, rainfall accumulations are still a little bit uncertain, and there's still some things that need to be left to be desired for a low pressure system to develop. And again, with that monsoon not arriving just yet, whatever rainfall that does come through is not going to be anything special, especially by North Queensland standards. But you can see scattered rainfall accumulations between 20 to 40 millimetres around Cairns, the Atherton Tablelands, up into the Daintree, and then as far south as even Townsville, but the rainfall not making it any further south than there. And we may see up to 100 millimetres occurring through parts of the Cassowary Coast between Monday and Friday next week as rainfall comes in from the east. If a low pressure system or a convergence zone does get itself set up, we could be talking about some substantially higher rainfall accumulations into the Cassowary Coast. Definitely a feature that I want to be watching quite closely over the coming couple of days. And just pushing rainfall accumulations out even further, we have been talking about or monitoring a bit of a development of low pressure system activity here south of Indonesia around the 10th of December. We talked about that a couple of days ago, and we may be seeing a bit of a low pressure system spun off from the south of Jakarta or Java here that could become our next tropical low or tropical cyclone. Now, we debunked this a couple of videos ago in terms of was this a risk for the West Australian or the Darwin coastline, because there was a bit of a shoddy forecast given that that could be a case, but that's just not going to happen at this point in time. And if this low pressure system does develop, which is probably a 50-50 chance at this point in time, considering it's going to coincide with the arrival of the monsoon in this part of the Indian Ocean, we could be talking about a tropical cyclone, that's for sure. But in terms of a tropical cyclone threat to Western Australia, the only threat is probably a slight enhancement in swell heights through the Pilbara and the Kimberley coastline. In other words, it's not going to come anywhere near WA. You can see it here very, very far away from the West Australian coastline and tracking off towards the Cocos Keeling Islands at this point in time. Interesting stuff, and definitely a turbulent time ahead as we get in towards December. Lots more severe thunderstorm activity, lots more rainfall activity, and for southeast Queensland, definitely a day to watch is today, and then of course back out to the 7th of December as well. More severe thunderstorm activity to be keeping us on our toes. I'll keep an eye on the situation. It definitely looks like tonight may present the risk of something a little bit stronger, but chances are still hit or miss through parts of Southeast Queensland. So definitely an event that I want to be keeping very close tabs on right now. Forecast models have been pretty much set in stone for the last couple of days that could be suggesting some severe thunderstorm activity through parts of the Ivanhoe outlook later today. But my second update coming out in a few hours, and I'll have all the details on what we can expect up into the Ivanhoe outlook shortly. Now, if you're ever new to my channel, please do consider subscribing, and also a massive thank you to all of the channel sponsors and supporters over on the screen right now. A massive list, and it's growing every single day. So a massive thank you to everybody that is on this list. I could not really run this show without them, and of course, the support is massively appreciated. But that's going to be all for me today, and I'll catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.